John,
Yo, what's up? Hey Joe, how are you?
where in the world are you? You're
I
East
I
Coast
am
right now?
Manhattan Beach visiting my brother. So that's why, but of course I'm virtually in Boca Chica, Texas, because why
We
not?
we all are virtually in Boca Chica,
Oh, yeah,
Texas.
we're all waiting to go to Mars here sometimes. I know you have a limited amount of time today, and I definitely want to get to talking about this. Let me see if I can share my screen momentarily. Yeah, so
Live,
this is what started this
live,
whole thing
live. Here
was
we go. I see it.
yeah,
Yes.
you said, 1,000 changes to hardware since April 20th, 69 days ago. That was a couple of days ago now. And then it's about another 6 weeks before supposedly they will launch, although who knows with all the legal crap that's going on. But anyway, it is pretty remarkable. I mean, we're talking about 1,000 changes to a rocket. This is not like, like a little toy model airplane or something like that. This is the largest rocket ever built, and yet there's 1,000 changes to it. So I'm going to stop
And
sharing.
there's
That's what we
regulatory compliance too, right? I
Yes,
mean,
exactly.
the FAA has to approve it for flight. It's not like it's an app for sharing recipes, which still
Right.
has some security constraints. And depending on what app store you're putting it in, some audits, right? And especially if it takes payment. Well, this thing is a flight certified article.
Right.
It, it's it's absolutely non-trivial to get anything approved for flight. And there's a
Right.
thousand changes to this in 69 days. So many people say you can't iterate anything quickly. And
Right.
then there's many people, even more, that say, or a subset, sorry, that say you can't iterate hardware quickly.
Right.
And by
Right.
quickly, they mean like less than 5 years, many
Right.
times,
Right.
definitely not less than a year. Then there's many people who say, well, you can't do it in a regulated industry when there's approvals. This is all three of those things. And there's a
Right.
thousand hardware changes in 69 days.
Right.
Ted Malaska at SpaceX, in a senior position there. Senior is an interesting word to use because all the Musk companies are so flat.
It's very, very,
But
yeah, exactly.
a respected position is maybe a good way to say it. But on LinkedIn, it lists as a senior position. Ted replied to my article from SpaceX and said, we don't have any project managers.
Right.
We don't have any agile. And I thought, well, that's awesome. And that actually matches what I experienced at Tesla. Like
Right.
I attempted to find the agile program and couldn't find it. So I created it
Right. Right.
to prove, is there one? Because then I thought I'd find the other one. There was none, right?
Yeah, right. So just make your own. If you can't find it, make your own, right? So there you go.
And then I really had trouble adding value with all of the agile I knew because the existing process was so good. So I asked Ted, okay, I visited SpaceX. I was a Tesla employee. What
Right.
is it? And Ted says, everybody works. You don't have any non-working roles at all, which is
Right.
already unusual, especially in aerospace.
Right. Oh yeah. Yeah.
Everyone works. And we trust our engineers. He's like, trust is the superpower. You're actually even a junior engineer. I'm adding on to what Ted says here. You can read the actual text on LinkedIn in our exchange. It's public.
Right. Oh, cool.
Yeah, but also I've had some messages and I visited, so I'll add on a little more. The engineers, even junior ones, are given an engineering responsibility and told, make your own decisions as fast as you can, run with it. You have no manager. Your manager is data. You have no boss. Your boss is data. So if
Right.
physics says the solution you chose wasn't the right one, you need to fix it and choose the right one according to physics. There's no boss
Right.
to tell you, but everyone will try to shoot your idea down according to what's best according to physics.
Okay. That makes sense. That makes sense. So but that also means that you basically just look at the results, and if the results say that you're on the right track, then you can just keep going with that, and you don't have to get approval from people. And yeah, so that seems to match, because we talked a lot about Tesla previously, and your experience there. And I remember specifically the charging cable or something like that that had a bend in it, and the person, so that was a specific story I remember you telling. So um, but it sounds like it's that sort of thing again. It's like just try it out, fill a scrap heap with stuff, and see if you can get it to work and spend X amount of hours doing it. And if it doesn't work, then it doesn't work. And if it looks like you're on the right track, then you can get a group together and like really see if it flies. Literally in this case.
The picture you took in the background is the best visualization of this. I've had the opportunity to work with Ariane Group, Airbus, Lockheed Martin, Boeing Aerospace, et cetera, all of the Europe and USA big players, and actually a few of the Asian ones in space and aerospace. And the idea of all of them is get it right the first time so you don't have scraps, you don't have to junk anything.
Right.
However, they do have massive scrap yards because errors happen, integration errors happen, parts don't fit. I mean, that's reality. That is reality.
Right.
The plan is we will only build this once. We'll design it perfectly. We'll build it once, and there will be no flaw. We will have no scrap. The idea of scrap or even recycling is terrifying in their culture, in all of those companies' culture. And then you look at the image you took behind you, you see Hoppy.
Yeah.
SpaceX is the only one of those companies that would build Hoppy. And yet the amount of scrap in SpaceX is actually less, even though they're building faster and iterating faster. Very interesting.
Yeah, it's what build fast, build fast, fail fast, iterate fast. Just knock it out and make it happen as quickly as possible. It is really interesting. It's remarkable how Elon as a person has had that's his philosophy. And a lot of times when you get big companies, Tesla's 120,000 people now. SpaceX isn't that large yet, but it's still not small. And a lot of times the founder's vision gets lost in all of that. And so it's very, very amazing to see that focus and that ability to build fast and fail fast has remained over the years.
I'm working with Toyota right now in Japan. And luckily that gets to be public. They gave me permission to put some specifically approved tweets out. I wasn't able to change the language, but I'm glad they were approved to say I am working with Toyota. And I'd like to share some information that can be public. One, Toyota's doing some of the practices I learned in Tesla now. They're doing Mob AI, which is group work assisted by AI. All the people in the work group working on one item together at a time, so that you have extremely wide range of creativity and extremely high quality in a very short time. If you're measuring each individual's time contribution, you might think it's inefficient. If you're measuring progress on the project, it's the most efficient. And that's actually the only metric that's meaningful. How quickly is the project moving forward? It's the fastest, far faster than individual work or multitasking.
Right.
And they are doing it now. There's a little more to it. Some people have taken my courses like Jody X, and you've done it with me. That's public. Now, related to that, Toyota is the home of what most of us call lean, right? And Toyota production system.
And just in time, all that. Yeah, exactly.
I've learned that is a mistranslation.
Really?
It's actually just on time.
Oh.
And there's actually a meaningful takeaway for those of us who want to know how come the Toyota Camry was the best-selling car in the world for what, like 23 years running, a very long time. And now it's not. So one, why was the Toyota Camry so dominant for so long? So something's really good about this process. And then why isn't it now? And both of those answers are in that mistranslation of just in time versus just on time. Lean is used to the purpose of lean, or they don't call it lean, but in Toyota, the Toyota production system and the Japanese business culture in general, the government supported business culture, is resource utilization. You have an island, and yes, there have been expansionistic periods throughout Japan's history where they had mining operations and harvesting operations around the world. But in general, the island has resources that you can visit within a season. Like you can see all of them, especially in a year. You could tour all of the primary resource generation areas. And in fact, in many government officials have done and do that. And the idea is don't waste. And it has nothing to do with time. Time is
Okay.
viewed as infinite. Time is viewed
Interesting.
as something you can squander. People love the idea of someone who spends 50 years working on just one thing to perfect it, which gives
Right.
you deep sense of quality and detail, which is lovely. And I
Yes.
hope that's not lost. Just on time means you're preventing spoilage, rust, denting, scratching, etc. You don't have the muda of moving things, moving things back and forth, which could create mura, bumping them, etc., marring them,
Right.
because
Right.
it arrived just on time.
Right. Interesting.
Nothing about caring about the time it takes.
Yes.
And there is zero in these business cultures about speed or innovation at all.
Right.
You have
Interesting.
this amount of metal. How many Toyota Camrys can we make out of this amount of metal?
Right.
And it's this phenomenal origami of making thinner and thinner car doors, et cetera, et cetera. It's really lovely. And it's
Right.
slow. It's super slow. And suddenly,
Right.
Tesla isn't trying to copy that. So you have other people who are being at best fast followers, and that's all of the auto industry and all of most industry. How do we use almost as little resource as Toyota per
Right.
vehicle?
Right.
And so they're not competing on innovation, which is the weak point, the opposite end. Then Musk says, accelerator full on, pace of innovation is the only thing that matters in the long run, even if there's mountains of scrap in the short term. And interestingly, through iteration, the Tesla cars are actually more resource efficient now, even though that's not the goal. Just like how lean
Right.
through resource minimization is actually pretty quick, not in
Yes.
innovation, but in production, it's actually pretty quick because of its
Right.
waste minimization. Well, Tesla is actually awesome now at waste minimization as a byproduct. Actually, they're the best now at waste minimization because they innovate so quickly. And
Right.
Toyota, I asked, actually, my business partner asked, why do you want agile? Maybe agile is the wrong word. SpaceX says we don't use agile. I'll say it's maybe
Right.
the only real agile, but whatever word it is, why do you want agile? And Toyota officially said, speed. We need more speed.
Interesting. Interesting.
So they've
Okay.
recognized that's their Achilles heel, that is their weak point. They're phenomenal at
Right.
resource utilization. That's the Toyota production system. But the pace of innovation is off pace.
Okay. That is, wow, there's so much to, I kind of want to linger on the whole just in time versus just on time, because there's there's an Americanization or maybe a Western Europeanization of just in time. There's this, the clock is ticking. It's, 2 seconds to midnight, go, go, go. And just on time feels much more like what I understand of Japanese culture, which is let's watch that cherry petal fall off the tree. It is just on time. It's infinite in this tiny moment. And there is no time pressure. And it's kind of beautiful. But as you're saying, it's also a little bit sad when you get a company like Tesla that suddenly blows that entire thing up. Because what they are like is they're like, we can spend 50 years coming up with a plan for the exact way to utilize the exact amount of aluminum that we need to make these doors. And Tesla's like, we'll do it in 3 months, just banging it out until we figure it out, and then injection mold this sucker. We'll do that instead. Yeah. So fascinating how it almost makes me honest. I hate to say this, but it makes me a little bit sad because I have a very I'm very attracted to sort of like Japanese culture in particular. I did martial arts for years. It was Korean, but very similar culture. Um, but and that idea of sort of this flow through time and this idea of not being stressed about time. But now suddenly Toyota's like, oh crap, we got to be stressed about time because Tesla is just blowing up our system here. Yeah, very interesting.
I'm
Um,
sure Toyota will develop their own that
right.
honors Toyota strengths, and it
Yeah.
won't be exactly an implementation of anything else. But the piece that Toyota wants to add right now is speed.
Right. Right. And yeah, and there probably is a way of doing it in more of a flow, less of a, oh my gosh, get it done this second. So less of looking at a clock, more of just being more efficient with time too, as if you consider that a resource. It is interesting that you said that because what is that? I'm a big fan of of watches too, and Grand Seiko and Crador, that a couple of very high end Japanese watch. They have the Saratsu polishing, which is that they take a metallic watch dial and they take a piece of wood and they like rub it for days and days and days just to get this exact like pattern on this. That's the opposite of trying to mass manufacture something. It's like, no, it takes this guy 2 decades to learn how to do it. And then it takes him like 10 days to do each watch face. And if you screw up, it's gone, toss it out, try again. So there's some beauty to that.
I didn't know about that. I
Oh,
actually am fascinated by watches, but I've kept it away, right?
right.
I
Well, you should look
resisted
into that. You
that
should look, I'll
hobby.
send you a couple of videos about it
I
because it's
like
just
it too much.
incredible.
Don't send it to me.
Yeah, I have a
Don't
bad
send it to me.
problem, which is that I really like fancy. Now, this is an Apple Watch, but I have a lot of very fancy ones at home. So anyway, but yeah, there is that sort of cultural thing. So certainly we're seeing this with Tesla. We also, I guess, SpaceX feels like Tesla on steroids just in terms of the amount of regulations. It's like, of course, you've got automobiles, you've got safety regulations, you've got a lot of stuff that they have to keep up with, and making changes difficult. But I'm here in Southern California right now. I drove to SpaceX headquarters yesterday, and yeah, it was awesome. I got to see the original Falcon 9 that landed. But as you're driving, you see Boeing, Lockheed Martin, Aerojet Rocketdyne. You're just driving down the road, and it's just like aerospace, 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 and to think about Tesla completely blowing up that system too, because speaking of a system that cost plus contracts, the longer it takes us, the better. We can make billions of dollars over just sitting around and doing nothing. And then you got SpaceX coming in here and going like, nah, let's just completely destroy this old method. So how do you think that they can do that though? How can they make 1,000 changes to a rocket in 69, 70 days?
There's something that I've really tried to communicate that I don't think I've effectively communicated. And John, I think you might be able to help me do it.
Okay.
I've never, I worked with Bill Gates before, and then I worked for Jeff Bezos after that. And then I worked for Elon Musk. And I have never experienced someone who worked with such sense of urgency.
Okay.
Elon seems to really believe we're running out of time. The environment is ending.
Right.
And if Elon can do anything today that has one less gasoline car sold, or anything today that has one more solar panel installed, Elon will do it.
Or
And
anything that can help us to start an Earth 2.0 on Mars.
I mean,
Yep.
the solution set is way broader than that. And we've talked a little bit about that. This like
Right.
next from hunter gathering to agrarian to industrial to what Elon is doing. Neuralink, Doge, the purpose of Twitter being democracy, et cetera. I mean, there's this, if any of this stuff works, it'll be a very interesting future. If all this stuff works, it'll be a amazing future.
Right.
So
Right.
to be determined. So all of this stuff, right? Well, I've never, ever worked with anyone, not in any nonprofit, not in especially nonprofits, interestingly, that had the least sense of urgency, bizarrely. Yeah, I mean, strangely, because they're very mission driven, it sounds like, right?
Right.
With the sense of urgency as Elon. So the idea of cost plus contracts where we make more money the slower we go,
Right.
that would be really tempting to someone who's attempting to maximize shareholder value or optimizing for taking money from people.
Right.
Elon does not appear to operate with that at all. Elon
Right.
is saying every second is really important. We need to make progress. And Elon's not trying to give someone wonderful work-life balance, although actually that's gotten a lot better. It got a lot better
Right.
while I was working at Tesla. Elon's not trying to make a comfortable life for your family and kids, although that's actually improved a lot. too.
Right. Right.
Elon's not trying to optimize for anything except these goals. And that
Right.
has created a business structure that's beyond any agile I've experienced anywhere. And it means you'd never accept an intentional delay to make more money because your goal
Right.
isn't make more money.
Right. I think, okay. So this is actually really interesting because we started off talking about the just on time and the Japanese and how they're very, because of the islands, they're very resource limited. That's their history. And so of course they're going to be very careful with that. And the idea that the counterbalance of that is that time is infinite and we have all the time to do whatever we need to. It's like Musk is the opposite side of both of those coins. It's like we have all the resources. That's one thing that the United States has. It's like we have lots of resources. So there's a cultural history of we have stuff to spare: trees, metal, whatever you want, oil, but we don't have time. He's like we have all the resources and we don't have time. So this is the thing to optimize for, is time. Whereas you saw like Toyota, and through them the Japanese culture is like we optimize for resources, for physical resources. He's optimizing for temporal resources. Yeah, and that's critical.
We understand each other exactly.
Right.
And 2 points that I'd like to add that might just confuse the conversation, but I'd like to get them on the record.
No, I don't think it will.
You, John,
Yeah.
is it's really good to talk with you, John, because you have such a diverse expertise. We can go really broad and really quickly, which fits
Right.
the way my mind works anyway. So I really appreciate it.
Well, that's why we get along well together. We're both just like,
Thanks for coming to visit. When I was in Hawaii,
yeah,
coming to hang out with me for a little bit there.
Yeah, that was awesome. Had a good time. So the 2 points, yes, because
Well,
otherwise we're going to get sidetracked and we're going to talk about Hawaii and stuff.
Well, it's related to like why I've got a really nice place to live in Hawaii that I'm choosing to not be in right now. Instead, I'm choosing to be in another place in Japan, and I don't have to work. I made plenty of money on Tesla stock, so why am I working so much?
Yeah.
I'm doing right about 100-hour weeks again. Why? I could just be retired, right? And it's related to these 2 points that are more broad, but maybe useful. One is Japan's economy has gotten smaller every year for the last 30 years in a row. Japan's population, the growth has decreased, and now overall population is decreasing as the end of life cycle is happening. And as a result, you have a lot of abandoned houses outside the major cities, and yet the people that are there are moving, and there are many people still. It still feels very populous. The people that are there are moving into the cities, which is making, in the short term, real estate values go up little by little in the big cities, but only in the big cities. Meanwhile, real estate values are essentially negative outside the major cities, the big 5 major cities, Tokyo being almost an order of magnitude bigger than the others. So Tokyo and then the other 4 kind of, and the Osaka people will totally say, no, we're really number 2, not like the other. Really, the margin is actually not that different from. Anyway, something that Japan, I'm now realizing, values in addition to resource utilization, resource efficiency. And the opposite is there's zero respect for time, which is really frustrating to me as an American, by culture, and by passport. I'm currently an American passport, but a flip side of that is it is safe. It is safe. And it's interesting. I ask ChatGPT, I ask Google Bard, I check DuckDuckGo. Where are safe places to travel? Where are safe places to live? And they say, Australia, blah, 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 blah. And I've been those places, and that's not my experience. The way I experienced Japan, they don't list Japan at the top. And I'll ask, like, where can you sleep outside in the city safely? Where can you pass out drunk with your laptop next to you? Not that I'd recommend it, but I'm like, your laptop's still going to be there. In fact, people have taken care of you. And interestingly, the search engines don't answer that well.
Yeah, probably not.
In Japan, you can. You
Really?
can pass out, and people really do drink after work.
Right.
You can pass out in the train station, on the street, with your laptop next to you, with your wallet on the floor next to you, with money hanging out.
Jeez.
People will either take care of you, or it'll at least definitely all be there whenever you come to. People might
Right.
carry you home and carry your stuff home. Like, you could leave your laptop on the train
Wow.
and come back the next day and get it at the train station. I would say 100% of the time, at least 99% of the time, but I would say 100. And I've never experienced that anywhere.
Right.
So Musk and Kimball both
Right.
said they choose America. If you want to grow a business, if you want to succeed with your vision, America is the place to live. And I really thought about that.
Right.
And for that reason, I think they're right. Now, there's a reason I really want to make sure the Japanese culture also grows, because currently it's not growing.
Right.
And that's this safety element. So how do you
Maybe,
bring
maybe
this
even beyond safety,
innovation?
you could call it like care, care for the community or others, right? And altruism. I mean, safety, I think, is an outgrowth of the attitude, is what it sounds like, and that's really, really cool to hear that. You know, that's also very endearing to me. So yes.
There's this sense of, the word I want to use is honesty, but that doesn't quite work. Where,
Right.
like, of course, I wouldn't take their money. Like, I wouldn't even think of taking their money, because that would be, you know, in a way, like, dishonest. But there's this separation. It's actually also very polite to lie to people because you don't want
Mm,
to upset them. And that's really difficult for me to take, because I want to make evidence-based decisions, and I want to make evidence-based
right.
decisions quickly. And here, you're supposed to talk to people for 2 to 3 years to get a really straightforward answer about something
Gosh.
like selling their farm or not,
Right.
uh,
Right.
which is a reason real estate goes really slowly.
Right.
Um, so time is infinite and disrespected. Honesty is not even not guaranteed; it's nearly impossible.
Right.
Uh, However, safety, security, comfort, and I
Right.
appreciate that you added some nuance to it, is higher than I've ever experienced anywhere.
Interesting.
Um, and there's this, you're not allowed to fail too far.
Right.
The whole culture is going to hold you up. Now, if you really don't fit, they will encourage you to kill yourself.
Really? Oh,
I don't
so
think
there is
that's
still that.
spoken about so much. Oh yeah. So if you're really neuroatypical in school,
Right.
even teachers will say you should kill
Wow.
yourself.
Wow.
So it's insane, man.
Wow.
Uh,
That's crazy. Let me, I know I want to respect your time here, but I really, really wanted to get your take, just a hot take on your kindergarten or first grade experience, because you've gone to what, 2 days worth of that now?
2 days of
That's
first grade
where you
in
don't speak
Japan.
the
I've
language,
enrolled
basically.
as a
Yeah.
first grader in Japan. I speak not first grade Japanese. There's a lot I don't
Yeah.
understand. I'm not at first grade level. I know that
Okay.
because I've enrolled in first grade. Uh, and I've attended 2 days, and I've been invited back. They haven't said don't come yet. So I go to my third day
They haven't told you to
as of
kill yourself
now.
yet. So you're
No,
okay. Yeah.
I mean, that is a thing. Yeah, next Monday I'll go again.
Wow.
It is better run as a everyone equal feeling
Right.
business than any business I've created or helped set up.
Wow.
What Wikispeed was really special. I do want to give Wikispeed credit. Wikispeed maybe was better run, but that was a rare, beautiful thing with a great situation around it. But the
Right.
kids run their own daily meeting. They call it the morning meeting.
Wow.
And the teachers participate, but at the same level as the kids.
Oh,
The
so
kids
cool.
facilitate it. And it's really well executed. The kids plan part of the daily agenda, like they have a list of what the lunch options are, and they choose which day it is, and they have meetings. They have 2 meetings. One group of kids plans like during free time. What are the options they're going to set up? I think it's for the next week. My Japanese is
Right.
really bad, so I might be misunderstanding some essential
Right.
pieces here. And they do that, and then like what music class is going to be in the next week. Then the other group of kids plans what day lunch, what lunch options are going to be, and then like which order is it going to be, math and language study or language and math study in the morning. I think it's, again, my language skills really low. And then they meet and they share and they see if the other group overrides or whatnot, and then they write the schedule, and then each morning the youngest kid in the school posts the schedule in the morning, and it looks just like a good agile backlog.
My goodness.
And they do it from the week's schedule, which is in some of the videos I published on LinkedIn, Instagram, YouTube, and Facebook. The jarring, painful part is they teach the kids to write the date in the number of years since the last emperor ascended. So that's Reiwa, we're in Reiwa 5. And I have a Japanese driver's license now. I can't use it as my ID anywhere else in the world because it shows my birthday in Reiwa. And they're like, I don't know if you're allowed to drink or not. And, and this is perpetuated. So it's like the US continuing to teach pounds and ounces and miles and inches to kids, right? So it feels toxic to experience this. It's the common era is also arbitrary. And that's not the majority delimiter for the Japanese culture. But it allows for communication, which is important.
Yeah, it would be like having not 60-minute hours and 24 hours in a day. You know, it just is, whoever came up with it, it's like, let's just accept it at this point because it's going to make life easier. So
for communication purposes, I mean, honestly, it's a really bad system at time.
Yes. Oh, it is. Yeah, it's terrible. Yeah.
But it's a common communication standard. It'd be like not using HTTPS and making your own little internet, which, by the way, Japan does basically. If you get a cell phone in Japan, you can't text message. They call it short mail. People who don't have a Japanese phone number.
Really?
And it doesn't even tell you. It sends, and you just never get a reply.
So you just think the person hates you now.
It's just blocked by, I think, all carriers in Japan. So that is one. They teach the date that way. The second is, in American English, we have first, second, third, 1, 2, 3. And then we have the teens, 13, 14, 15. We have some weird aspects to our numbers. In Japan, it's a different counting system, whether you're counting something that's long and thin, like a pencil, or if you're counting a big animal, or if you're counting something really small, like a bean. And there's at least 18 of these things. I think there's a lot more, but in first grade in Japan, I was being taught, they were taking up all of our time and mental space to teach us at least 18 different counting systems. And that was one day. And I don't know how deep the rabbit hole goes.
So wait, so like the Ichinishi-san, that's like, is that like a pencil or something? Or like, what is that?
I don't know yet. I don't know yet.
You got a lot to learn, man. You need to get back to first grade.
The technical debt, the things we cope with that we should clean up are being perpetuated to little kids and the next generation. And if anyone wants to go fast, if anyone thinks speed of innovation is the only thing that matters in the long run, we'd be really interested in being able to understand global ideas really quickly, being able to communicate with the broadest audience possible very quickly, and being able to act on it very quickly. And Japan, among others, I mean, the US still does feet and ounces.
I know. Believe me, if I could be president for one day, that would be the one thing I would change.
I would support that.
Thank you. Vote for me.
It's poison that's being put in these kids' heads. Now, that said, the sense of safety, the sense of responsibility, the way people work as a team, I've never seen at that level. So it's not all bad, it's not all good, but the good is profoundly good, and the bad for pace of innovation is profoundly toxic.
Right. Fascinating. Okay. Wow, what an interesting topic. I know you've got to go, but thank you so much. I don't know if you have any closing thoughts? I mean, I guess this has turned into Japan versus Tesla, sort of the topic du jour, or Japan
Well,
versus Elon Musk specifically. Yeah.
this is why Tesla headquarters in the USA. This is why SpaceX headquarters in the USA and not Japan.
Right.
And this is why Tesla has a factory in Shanghai and not in Japan. So we can point it that way. But what I'd say is for those of us who have a passion more like mine, which is currently I'm not a Tesla employee, although I loved the time I was there.
Right.
Maybe you're trying to apply good practices to your own studies, your own personal life, your own development, or your own business. I'd say the safety element and the social care element could be amplified, and that would be above and beyond what I experienced at Tesla or when I visited SpaceX. So those are also important. And the idea that you can't fail out of the system, I think there's a way to do that and be successful. And some of those lessons I'm experiencing now in Japan, but you can't do that at expense of the pace of innovation, or your economy and population fall.
Decline. Yeah. Okay. Wow. Well, there you go. That's pretty profound stuff. And I would think, I hate to say this, but this is not just for individuals, but even countries should be listening to what you're saying. This is stuff where
we are saying, John. Well, we are saying.
Yeah. But I'm just saying, like, you can't, if you are, the Chancellor of Germany or something, whatever. It's like you need to think about these things. These are profoundly important for the future because, like you say, the economy declines, the birth rate declines, you lose population and you lose standing in the world, and that's pretty critical.
I was asking why the year taught in Reiwa, for example, is part of the mandatory curriculum that's lovingly and cutely and adorably taught starting in first grade. And apparently it's because that's how the government operates internally. All government documents are in years of Reiwa, for example, a lot of this. So it seems step one is to increase the pace of innovation in government. As impossible as that may sound, it looks like that is step one. And then step two is to, apparently it naturally happens, but encourage education to match the way government operates, which from that model, it actually seems really clear why the US educational system is as it is. It essentially matches the way government operates on one level. And that seems to be how it works in Japan and actually most of the European countries I've worked in or visited. So step one, attempt to increase the pace of innovation in government. Allow the school system to match that, and you have the benefit of a growth economy, a growth population, and do that in a way that honors safety. I'm working more and more with governments globally, not as much as I want, but some. The Japanese government has approved an agile contract for suppliers, contractors, clients, directly endorsed by the national government of Japan, and that's huge. So I hope that's the big exciting takeaway: is vote for pace of innovation, not along any party lines, not along whatever candidate spends the most or whatever their super PAC is, but who looks like that has the strongest bet for pace of innovation, because that's the only thing that matters in the long run.
Interesting. Well, as Elon Musk said, it's government is business in the limit, and pace of innovation is what you take two of his quotes and mash them together. So there you go. Joe Justice's lesson for the day is the pace of innovation in government. All right. Thank you so much. I really appreciate it. We have so much more to talk about it, but I'll let you go today, and we'll set it up for another time and chat about it some more. But again, Joe Justice, check out all of his information. I'll put links to everything in the description. Obviously, you can DM him at Joe Justice on Twitter, and there you go, right there. Check it out. Agile Business Institute, author of books, just super all around amazing person. So anyway, thank you so much for joining me today. I really appreciate it. And everybody have a lovely day. And thank you so much again, Joe.